to a story we have been following since mid-afternoon.
18 passengers were injured after a Delta plane flipped upside down during landing at Toronto Pearson Airport.
Here's what we know tonight. The FAA says 80 people were on that plane at the time of the crash, 76 passengers and 4 crew. The aircraft was arriving from Minneapolis. There were no deaths or critical injuries. This, according to airport officials.
We also learned that the same aircraft that crashed flew from Cleveland to Minneapolis earlier today. NBC's Tom Costello has the latest.
On the runway in Toronto, a terrifying end for Delta Flight 4819.
Our plane crashed. It's upside down.
Lying upside down on the runway, an Endeavour Air regional jet had just arrived from Minneapolis in gusty winds when something went terribly wrong.
This airplane just crashed at 23.
As thick black smoke poured from the plane, firefighters smothered the scene in foam. The right wing ripped off, the fuselage bearing what appeared to be skid or soot marks.
Everything, drop it!
All 80 people on board managed to escape through the emergency exits.
I was walking to this fence and I could see a CRJ that is possibly crashed on the airport. The airplane is flipped.
18 people injured and transported to area hospitals, including 2 airlifted to trauma centers. 1 child rushed to Children's Hospital in Toronto.
I've seen a few people on stretchers that we have transported. I have seen one person with a sling on their arm, and I've seen others that are just potentially exposure type injuries because it is very cold here.
The plane, a Bombardier CRJ 900 regional jet made in Canada, is a workhorse for short-haul flights worldwide. At the time of the crash, it was 18 degrees with 20 to 30 mile-per-hour winds and strong crosswinds. The question for investigators, how and why did the plane lose at least one, maybe both wings on landing, then flip over, causing jet fuel to spill onto the runway?
I think it's possible the wing may have touched the runway due to a gust, and if that's the case, then the rest of this makes sense. But the recorders are going to show that.
In a statement, Delta says our primary focus is taking care of those impacted. The flight was carrying a total of 80 people, 76 passengers, and 4 crew. The investigation now will be led by the Canadian Transportation Safety Board, with both the U.S. FAA and NTSB assisting.
And that was NBC's Tom Costello reporting. Now, to reiterate, that same aircraft left Cleveland at about 8 o'clock this morning for Minneapolis. So far, there is no indication that any passengers on that flight were also on the Minneapolis flight to Toronto.